We all benefited from this meeting, as I hope you will, by learning some of the things that we learned about when we went to Huntsville. The meeting was called Getting to Know You, and it was held in November. What was this thing that we went to? It was a support group conference with support groups from quite a diverse area, as you're about to see. It was started by Jerry Peelsticker from Oakville, and John helped out a lot. And there were 34 people there with 8 women, 26 men, 17 support groups from Ontario, Quebec, and even Winnipeg. So it was a pretty diverse group. And we didn't know each other when we started, but we sure did when we finished.
Funding was provided partially by this group and partially by Janssen, as you can see. A pharmaceutical company is part of the Johnson & Johnson family of companies. The conference is divided into 4 sections, getting to know you, as it says, and so we spent the Friday evening largely getting to know each other through a number of exercises that were fun to do and forced people to get together and move around in different groups, etc. Then the next day there was an education session, a number of presentations by others or people outside the group. I'll come to that in a moment. And then of course the weekend continued because there were 17 support groups were represented here. It was a good idea to obviously share experiences in terms of how you develop a group, how you get people coming, how you set up programs that are of interest. And the Friday evening essentially was started with exercise, game, just fun time in terms of doing this blue elephant exercise, which is really, we were all asked to bring something from home, some item that nice, interesting, but we could do without. So it's great for passing on Christmas gifts and things. Anyway, so wrapped item, these were put out, and then not unlike some other games, this one was called Blue Elephant, but I've seen others. You know, you start unwrapping one, and then the next person to unwrap, if they like what you unwrap, they can take yours, and you have to unwrap another, etc., etc. So you can imagine that there's a lot of back and forth on tables, and people looking at things that others had gotten and they were satisfied with, and then they lost them and had to go get another. We then moved into these 3-minute elevator pictures. We just discovered we were on a very slow elevator very often. And some of the 3 minutes sort of stretched out a bit. But that only reflected the fact that a lot of the groups had a lot of issues they were dealing with, had a lot of suggestions about how they operated, and that might be of interest to other groups, etc. There was just a lot to talk about. In fact, these are some of the issues, problems, and suggestions that came out of those sessions. Things about newsletters and brochures, how to use them effectively, how to get them out, finding speakers, of course, for programs, evenings like this. Co-chairs, all that was about leadership and finding people to pass leadership on to, of course, because nobody stays around for years and years, and etc. Distributing workload, funding, etc. Just a lot of issues that were well worth sharing.
PSA testing, spouses and families, men's health awareness events, advertising, and on it goes. Okay, next slide, please. Now there were a number of women attending, which gave us a nice diversity because they were active and gave their perspective on living with men who are dealing with cancer, prostate cancer. So, and we have women attend here. And my wife came to the Christmas function, which I was really glad she did because she met a number of folks here and we had a good time. So you can see some of the things which are particular to women. Women do some things much better than men, and communicating is one of them. And And so they talked to that point very well, and in fact put together a little tune.
They did indeed.
Indeed. And,
this was the song.
This was the song. I'll give you a minute to digest that, but you've probably already seen it if you had advance notice of it. But they were great. They were great, and they got up and put that together. They went off into their own meeting.
They
right,
did.
Dan, Martin? So they went off in their own meeting and then came back and reported out. And this was the highlight of their report, I would suggest.
They went off to their own meeting for a couple hours, and when they came back, we still had another 3 hours to go with those 3-minute elevator pitches. They went on till after 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and I should hesitate to say that there was lots of communication.
Lots of
even though women
information.
seem to do it at another level than maybe men, but there was no shortage of topics. I thought what for me was very good was the speakers we had, and I have Andrea Simone from the Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit, Michigan, who's a Canadian, by the way, and lives in Canada, but works in Detroit. She lives in Windsor. She gave a very good overview of the work of this particular center in issues after prostate surgery and the recovery, post-recovery of prostate cancer patients who have been operated on with the Da Vinci robot. And of course her emphasis is post-surgery incontinence and penile rehabilitation. So she was very good. She's very good, and has certainly demonstrated quite a good understanding. She's very valued by the Ford Hospital in Detroit as being a key communicator for the work that she does.
She was terrific, and definitely one of the highlights of the meeting. And here's some of the comments that some of the attendees had to say about her. And they're all perfect descriptions. The no-hold-barred description of the way it is. She talked about our experiences like she experienced them herself. And she wasn't embarrassed. It was a perfect explanation. And you can see some of the things that the people there thought of her. That her talk was too short, even though it went on for an hour and a half or so, and some people thought it was too short. It was that good. And if you'd like to see some of her talk, there are a couple videos available, one on YouTube and one, I believe, from Windsor, the Windsor support group, off their website. And no need to write them down. We have papers with the website address. It's definitely worth watching the videos of her. And they're worth watching with your significant others as well. There was also a couple presentations from Janssen, and the first one was how drugs are developed and brought to market, which could be pretty boring, but the speaker was very good. Mark Fleming, he was Director of Federal Affairs and Health Policy for Janssen. He knew what he was talking about, and he made a dry topic very interesting. And some of the things that he talked about, he focused on the need for medicines, and talked about the hoops that the drug companies have to jump through to bring a drug to market, and that can take 10 to 14 years to bring a drug to market once they come up with the concept for it. And it was quite interesting. The major takeaway is that there is a need for grassroots knowledge and support in new drug development. And he also maybe changed the way some people think about the drug companies. There was another presentation from Janssen about understanding how private insurance works. And some of the comments that attendees had to say about both speakers. Great information, interesting, informative. I like that last one about Mary's presentation. Very complex, the intricacies of paying for drugs. It was,
I think one thing that did come from it was that we're very lucky if we have a good comprehensive drug plan. There's no question about that.
We moved into a number of sessions now with the attendees at the conference. There were essentially 4 sessions. Leadership was the first one we have here. The comments we see here are essentially some of the things that came out of talking about leadership. These are comments that we have them recorded, and we'll be using those ourselves here as well, just in terms of developing our leadership.
And one thing that was a big part of it was how to get younger members involved, because as the leadership ages, you need to attract new members. So there was quite a bit of discussion about getting the younger members of support groups involved.
Membership was also a large issue. It was actually we debated the term membership a little bit, because there were many people who thought that we're not really looking for members. What we're trying to do really is educate a public that needs to know something, or that specific public, of course, men with prostate cancer, to educate them. But at the same time, you recognize if you're going to have a group like this, you've got to have members, because people have to organize things, etc. So it's that double kind of focus in terms of so membership is there, but also for some it was much more the issue of not drawing in members, but getting out to the men who need some help, who perhaps need some counseling, etc. How to get people started on the road to some leadership, because obviously if you try to pull someone in directly into a leadership role, especially chairing something, that is such a big step for most people that you don't get a response. So there's a necessity. We talked about the necessity of taking some of these jobs and making them bite-sized, so that people had a chance to become accustomed to being part of the leadership.
There was an idea that pops up on this slide that was part of the 3-minute elevator pitches and expanded on during the breakout session that I thought was really terrific, and a lot of people did by the length of the discussion we had on it. Was one of the groups had every September, they had a prostate health awareness, not a prostate cancer awareness night, prostate health awareness night at their club or at a mall. I'm not sure where they had it, but it attracted a lot more people. It wasn't as scary as calling it prostate cancer. It attracted people who just had an interest in learning about prostate health. And it sounded like a terrific idea. So I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, excellent point, Dan, that health instead of cancer. Dealing with local agencies, the third item that we were looking at, and that's really how to use organizations within the community and get them involved in one way or another, supporting the groups, using them as ways of getting information about the support groups out, leaving information at places, the idea of even having a logo pin, just like poppies are.
The last of the 4 breakout sessions was what are ways our groups can work more effectively with PCCN. And I just have a few of the comments here. And there was some confusion among the people, since many of the people there had never been to a conference. Wasn't sure the difference between PC, PCCN. So we discussed that a lot, and we just discussed different ways that groups can work with the national organization. Just a few things to wrap up some of the comments from participants. It certainly was worth it, I think, for the 3 of us and for the other 30+ members that showed up there. It was absolutely wonderful. We learned so much. We sharing, of course. It was a productive weekend. And speakers were great. The location was terrific. The camaraderie was fantastic. And we learned so much. And I wanted to say thanks to Jerry, who's not here, and of course, John.
Thanks, John, and certainly the financial contribution of the Ottawa Cancer Support Group, which wouldn't have happened without it, so thanks very much.
I've been to a number of the conferences. I've been to Calgary twice, and I've been to Regina, and I've been to Toronto, to a couple of different ones there. I have never been to one that was so successful at moving information on support groups. It's the best I've ever seen. And I gotta give Jerry and John and everyone else that was part of it, you done a great job. Bye.